Hey guys, Tuck the Duck 131 here with the second part of my cube, the blue section. So I guess we can just get started. Okay, so for 1-drops in the cube, the only one that we have is Enclave Cryptologist, which is a 1-mana 0/1 with level for 2 mana. Levels 1 to 2, you can tap it to loot, and once it gets to level 3, you can just tap it to just draw a card. So that's pretty good for sifting through your deck, drawing some cards early on. Into the 2-drops, we have Looteril Core. This card is super good. Basically, he's a 1/1 for 2 with Shadow. And then when he deals damage, you can loot. He is the Looteril Core. He's really good. Great tempo card. Sifts through your deck really quickly. And we got the Phantasmal Image, which is 2 mana. Basically a clone. You copy anything on the battlefield, but there's a catch. Whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability, you have to sacrifice it, which is a little bit relevant. For 3-drops, we have quite a few. We'll start with Serendib Efreet. He is a 3/4 flyer for 3 that deals 1 damage to you every turn. Pretty good, pretty aggressive card. I like it. We've also got Seagate Oracle, which as a 1/3 for 3 that basically lets you sleight of hand when you play him. You look at the top 2 cards of your library. One goes in your hand, one goes in the bottom of the library. So pretty good. We've got Pestermite. Pestermite's really lackluster in the cube. It's a 3-mana 2/1 with flying and flash, and in the battlefield you tap or untap a permanent. But there's no Splinter Twin, there's no Kiki Jiki in the cube, so really it's just a 2/1 flyer that may do something relevant. Definitely not great. And then the last real 3-mana creature is a Manowar. He's a 2/2 for 3, and basically he enters the battlefield and bounces a creature. Super good tempo play. This card is great. I love it. And he's a jellyfish, which is even better. Then we've got Phyrexian Metamorph, which, again, like Porcelain Legionnaire, has the Phyrexian mana symbol. And it's a clone, but for artifacts and creatures. It costs 3 mana. Really, you'll play this in just about any deck, just like the Porcelain Legionnaire. But it does have the blue symbol, so I put it in the blue section. Obviously, it's a little bit better in blue because you can pay this if you have nothing else to do. But yeah, it's a super good clone. You can copy like, what's a good thing to copy? Artifacts. You can copy Sol Ring, I guess. That's a good. Continuing. This is Muldrifter. Muldrifter is a 5-mana creature. Is a 2/2 flyer for 5, but you can evoke him for 3. Which is probably how he's more commonly played, because he enters the battlefield and you divination. You draw 2 cards, so you can evoke him in the early game to get some more gas, and then in the late game you can just play him as a creature and have an extra beater and get that drawing ability off as well. So we're going to go straight to 5 mana with Meloku the Clouded Mirror. I love Meloku. Meloku's great. It's a 5 mana 2/4 with flying. And it's like, oh man, great. But you can pay 1 colorless to return a land that you control to your hand and get a 1/1. He's really good with Skull Clamp or anything where with something in this battlefield or pump effects. He basically, like, you get to a certain point in the game where like you've kind of reached a stalemate, and both of your life totals are pretty low, and you play Meloku, and then you tap all your mana, bounce all your lands, and then just have a bunch of 1/1s and just keep beating. He's super good, super high pick. I love Meloku. And then we'll get to 6-drops. We've got I guess we can start with Frost Titan. Frost Titan is the blue Titan. He's a 6 mana 6/6 that basically has almost hexproof. He has hexproof, but unless they pay 2 colorless, and when he attacks, you get to tap a permanent, and it does not untap during its controller's untap step. Basically, I like to think of Frost Titan as the Titan that beats. He's probably the worst Titan in Cube. in general, the worst Titan. But against another Titan, he's the best Titan because he taps down that Titan, prevents them from triggering their ability and preventing them from attacking. So he beats the other Titans, but in a vacuum, he's probably the most underwhelming. He's still a very good card, though. We've got Aetherling, who was recently in Standard. He's a 6-mana 4/5, basically. You can pay a colorless to either give him +1/-1 or -1/+1 till end of turn, so you can get him as big as a 0/9 or as big as an 8/1. You can pay a blue to make him unblockable, and then you can pay a blue to exile him and then bring him back at the next end step. So if they try to target him with removal, exile him, bring him back in. If they try to, or basically what you're going to do is you're going to have all your mana up and you're going to pump him enough so that he's unblockable, you attack, deal as much damage as possible, and then you have your blue, and then you bounce him and he comes back in and he's able to block. So that's, Aetherling is a super great finisher in blue control decks. Really good, really like him. Then we've got Baby Jace, Jace Beleren, the 3-mana 3 loyalty planeswalker that instantly goes up to 5 loyalty, allowing each player to draw a card with his +2 ability. You can -1 to make a target player draw a card. Normally that'll be you. I don't really know a situation where you would want to just -1 targeting your opponent, but it could come up. And then his -10 mills 1 library, 20 cards, which in Cube is, in a limited environment, is extremely, that's half of your deck. So, just taking him up, your opponent's probably going to try and deal with him, but, if you get him to the -10, it's super great. If not, he just gives you some card advantage. And he kind of fogs the board, as most planeswalkers do when you play them. Your opponent's like, I can't let him have that, and they just start attacking the planeswalker instead of you, so it gives you a couple of extra turns to get what you need to do done. Then you've got Crystal Shard, which is a blue card, 3 colorless. Basically, you pay a blue and tap it, and you return a creature to its owner's hand, and lets controller pays 1. So this could be your opponent's. You can also pay 3 colorless and tap it, which probably don't want to do. A lot of times you're going to target your own stuff and bounce that back to your hand to get into the battlefield triggers off and stuff, like bounce your Muldrifter or bounce your Mana War or something like that. But if there's a creature, if your opponent's tapped out and they've got a big creature, then you can always just boom, there you go, it's gone. So Crystal Shard's pretty good, and then we have a suite of counter spells. At instant speed, we can go through all of them. We'll start out with Counterspell. Super simple. 2 blue, counter target spell. That's it. Yeah, probably the most consistent counterspell in my, especially in my cube. I'd say, just get rid of it. Mana Leak makes it a little bit easier to cast, but they can pay 3 to have it not countered. Still very good. Force Spike, the 1-mana counterspell, it's the same card as Mana Tithe, which we saw before, and white, 1 blue, counter target spell unless controller pays 1. If they're tapped out and they try and play the big bomb, you just Force Spike, super satisfying. Then we've got Forbid, it's a 3-mana counter target spell, but it has buyback, discard 2 cards. So if you are drawing a lot of cards, you got a lot of cards in your hand, you can basically every turn, as long as you've got just counter every spell they have, just discard your 2 cards, counter, discard 2 cards, counter, as long as you've got mana and cards in your hand, you can just keep doing it. So it's really good. We've got Miscalculation, which is another 2-mana counterspell. This is like Mana Leak, where they have to pay an amount, but it's only 2 this time. But it makes up for it with the fact that it does have cycling, so you can pay 2 colorless to discard this card and draw a new card in case you don't need another counterspell, or you need to draw through your deck to try and find something to win the game. We've got Condescend, which is you pay a blue and X, so you counter target spell and its controller pays X, and then you scry 2 upon the resolution of this spell. So you can look at the top 2, put them back in any order, put them on the bottom, the top, whatever you need to do. So it's a nice deck manipulation on a counterspell that's pretty good. We've got Memory Lapse, which is a great counterspell. It's colorless and a blue. counter target spell, put it on top of your opponent's library. So if they try to play, let's say, they try to play something, and then you counter it, and then they don't have a draw for the next turn. Let's say they're just trying to play like a Mana Dork or something. Then when you memory lapse, it's on top of the library. They're not going to draw any gas. They're just going to draw that Mana Dork again, and you're going to have an extra draw. It's almost like a Time Walk. A lot worse than a Time Walk, but it kind of has the same implication. We've got everybody's favorite Daze. Daze is colorless in a blue. Counter target spell, unless its controller pays 1. You'd say, oh man, that's terrible. Miscalculation and Mana Leak are better than that 2 mana spot. But instead of paying your 2 mana, you can return an island you control to your hand and cast it for free. So it's definitely not as good as it is in Legacy, but it is still a threat. If you're playing against a blue opponent, you always have to worry, like, do they have Daze if they're tapped out, you know? And that's something that you always have to worry about. And it's almost, if you're not playing Daze, it gives that threat. It's like just an extra level to the play that you need to worry about. And it's not bad. Arcane Denial is a 2 mana counter spell that counters a spell, and then that spell's caster may draw up to 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So, but you also get to draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So you counter their spell, and then they draw 2 cards, and you draw an extra card. So it's pretty good. You're giving them some cards, but you want to use it on something big, like counter a Titan or counter something else that's ridiculous. Hero of Bladehold or something, I don't know. An Aetherling. And you're giving them 2 cards, which could be dangerous, but you're also drawing that card. It's probably the worst counterspell right now in the cube. But it's still pretty good. Next, we have the other instance. Well, we can talk about, we've got instance that draw cards and instance that don't. Into the Royal is the one that doesn't. Well, I guess it kind of draws cards. 2 mana, return an island permanent to its owner's hand. But you can pay another 2 mana as a kicker cost to also draw a card. So if you got that 4 mana, you get to draw a card as well. If not, then you're just bouncing it, and it's pretty good. I sure like it. Here's Impulse. Impulse is 2 mana. Look at the top 4 cards. Draw. Put 1 in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of the library. Just great deck manipulation. Get you a card. Next we've got Brainstorm, which is worse than it is in Legacy because we don't have fetch lands or ways to reliably shuffle the deck. However, it's still a 1 mana, draw 3, put 2 back. Just a little bit of deck manipulation, you can still get to draw a card. It's not bad, but it's not as phenomenal as it is in Eternal formats. Thirst for Knowledge. I love Thirst for Knowledge. I play Thirst for Knowledge in Modern. It's a 3 mana instant. You draw 3, like Brainstorm, and then you discard 2 unless you discard an artifact. Really awesome card. Lets you draw. You can draw. It can be the Divination, or just you draw 1 card, depending on what you need. If you want to discard something, that's great. Maybe for a Reanimator or something, but still pretty reliable drawing. And it's not just a blind draw. Fact or Fiction, widely regarded as the most skill-intensive card in Magic the Gathering. It's a 4 mana instant. You reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Your opponent separates them into 2 piles. 1 goes in your hand, 1 goes into your graveyard. You get to choose. This makes your opponent play your game for you. They need to figure out what you need, which can be really tough. You know, if you... Let's say, based on the board, they're playing an aggressive deck, and you need a Wrath. You're playing your control deck. And they say, okay, and they reveal, let's just say Wrath of God was in the cube, and they reveal a Wrath of God, but you've got Day of Judgment in your hand. They separate the piles, and they're like, okay, I'll put 4 cards in one pile and Wrath of God in the other pile, because we know he needs Wrath of God. So we're only going to give him Wrath of God. You take the 4 cards, you've drawn 4 cards for 4 mana, and then you get to clear their board. There's just a lot of levels to this card, and it's really hard for your opponent, because your opponent has to know what you need to do, which is really tough sometimes in Magic. So it's a lot of decisions that your opponent needs to make, and it can end up drawing you a lot of cards. We've got Preordain. So 1 mana Scry Tooth and draw a card. So you get to manipulate your deck a little bit, and then you get to draw a card. It's just another cantrip. Then we've got Ponder, which is look at the top 3, put them back in any order, draw a card. You can shuffle if you need to before you draw the card. So it's just another Preordained Brainstorm variant cantrip, pretty good. Deep Analysis is a 4 mana, draw 2 cards, but you can flash it back for 2 and you pay 3 life. So pretty good. You essentially get to draw 4 cards. You can save it for later, and you just get 2 uses out of the card, which is really useful. And then the last 2 sorceries that we have are Tinker. Tinker is not huge in this version of the cube, but in my bigger cube it's going to be a lot better. You can still tinker away your Everflowing Shallows for a Sundering Titan, which is quite the swing. And it can be huge. First picking Tinker is what you want to do. You first pick Tinker and then you draft your Tinker deck. You don't want to draft the Tinker deck without Tinker, because then you just have a bunch of big clunky artifacts and no way to get them out. But when you do have the Tinker deck, it's really satisfying and really powerful. And then the last sorcery is Upheaval. Upheaval is ridiculously powerful. It has its own archetype. What you want to do with Upheaval is you draft a bunch of mana rocks and you ramp and stuff, and you end up you float a bunch of mana, bounce all the permanents on the board for 6 mana, and then you use your excess mana to cast something. You play land, cast something, and then you have whatever your big thing that you just cast is, and your opponent just had to start the game over and discard a bunch of cards, which is huge. It resets the game. It's like essentially Time Twister. It's crazy what this card does sometimes, used correctly in the right deck. Yeah, so if you draft the right Upheaval deck, again, it's like Tinker. You've got to draft the Upheaval deck for Upheaval to be good, but when you do, it's crazy. And then our enchantments are the Control Magic variants. We've got Control Magic and Mind Control. Which one is which? I don't know. I can't see. Control Magic 4 mana. It's good. It's great. 4 mana. You control enchanted creature. Mind Control 5 mana. Does the same thing. Not good enough. Treachery is supposed to be in the slot. Treachery is a little bit more expensive. I don't have one yet. Treachery essentially is Mind Control, but you want to tap out the lands after you cast it. But getting your opponent's bomb is crazy, and it's great. Last blue card is Shelldock Isle. Shelldock Isle is a land. What? That's crazy, you may say. It has Hideaway, so it enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 4 cards of your library, and you put one of them face down underneath Shelldock Isle. You can tap it for a blue, so it's just a normal island. But if a library has 20 or fewer cards in it, you can pay a blue, tap it, and cast the card that you exiled without paying its mana cost. This can be huge. In Limited, you've got 40 card decks. You start by drawing a 7 card hand. That leaves you with 33 cards in your deck, minimum, without mulligans. And then you're playing blue, you're probably playing some draw spells. Having 20 for your cards is not uncommon. And you get to cast your big guy. You get to cast your Frost Titan for free. You get to cast your whatever you want for free. I don't know. Big guy. It's free. Shelldock Isle. Or 1 mana. But, in comparison to what you normally would pay for it, it's crazy. And you can do that at instant speed as well. Which is crazy. Or I think. Oh, now I'm doubting myself. Well, never mind. That was blue. Blue is super cool. So I'll see you guys for the red video. The black video. That's my fault. Woo Berg. The black video will be next.